to our weekly news program. I'm your host and editor, Diana Longry. Thank you for tuning in. Our program is a weekly news program coming to you from the Valley Access Public Access Studios in Stillwater. Now, to help me with this week's news cast is my co-anchor, Mr. Kevin Berglund. Thank you, Mr. Berglund, for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Now, today we are going to cover a number of topics involving the city of Maplewood. Now, the first topic does also pertain to other residents of Ramsey County as well. So just because we're talking about Maplewood doesn't mean that it is only of relevance to people in Maplewood. And that is the issue of organics trash collection. Yes, you have heard that Ramsey County is ramping up to do the collection of organic trash. Well, exactly what does that mean? Now, Mr. Berglund, you've been following this topic throughout the last couple of years as Ramsey County and Washington County have their trash facility, and that the cities have been moving towards organized trash collection, and now we're all talking about collection of organic waste. What does the collection of organic waste actually mean?
Of course, everybody is interested in trash and recycling and organic recycling now more and more, so we've cut our teeth into the whole business. And of course, the government knows that it's a positive thing to be seen doing recycling and collecting organic waste, but the question is, are they using it just as more of a PR stunt, some talking points, rather than genuinely in educating people and actually setting up processes that work? And of course, Ramsey County really understands that in order to keep raising taxes and jacking up fees and playing this game with the to try to get credibility with residents, they keep promoting that they're taking the next step. But are they really?
And you bring up a good point, is that what is the scalability of collecting organic waste to make it worth doing? Because when you're collecting organic waste, you have to handle it differently than just all the other trash. I mean, the organic waste that we're talking about are the types of things when you're peeling your potatoes, that you've got other vegetable waste from cooking or from your kitchen. There's a whole list of items that are considered collectible for organic waste collection. But you brought up a point last week asking what happens though if somebody puts something into the organic waste collection that isn't organic. Does that taint and contaminate then that collection of organic waste? Are they going to pick through to pull out the styrofoam cups that ended up in the organic waste, or not? Is that practical?
And of course, if you have a big dumpster, which you have designated in your city of organic waste, and what happens if someone puts in a plastic bag, which is not organic? Does that mean, in fact, all the organic waste goes now into the trash?
Many workplaces now, they do have these bins where they have, okay, here's your recyclables, and it gives you the list of examples. And then there's waste, which is not recyclable, it's not anything, it's just garbage. And then there's the organic bin, and it tells you clearly what things do not go in there. And so, like, say for instance, your cardboard box from your TV dinner, that is not something that's supposed to go in there. That goes into the recycling bin, not the organics bin. You see, so how are you going to really have a program so people understand which is which. And this whole idea about the education of people, it's important, but I don't really see a lot of focus on exactly how they're going to do that.
Unfortunately, when you look at Ramsey County, they really do cut short the conversation because, as you mentioned, there are so many dimensions. Everyone agrees that organic waste would be a very real benefit. In fact, it's nothing new because for many, many years, many people, I don't know if necessarily apartment dwellers, but many regular homeowners have had a little slop pail where in their backyard they put their banana peels, their eggshells, their apple peelings, their potato peelings. Now, of course, when they're only using a small ice cream pail, they can control it because another consequence of organic waste is you're going to have maggots, those little maggot worms. So it has to be dealt with. Again, if you have the big dumpster, the question is, what are they going to do about the maggots? And then if you bring one of those big, heavy dumpsters, and this is what Ramsey County is pretending to do right now, trying to locate in each city a big dumpster where you're supposed to bring your organic pail or your organic bag or your organic basket and dump it in. But is there any real quality control? And is, in fact, in every case, or virtually every case, it's just a PR stunt, and those organic big bins are all just going into the trash because one person has put old bread in there and forgot to take the wrapping off, or has put a bag of lettuce in there and has ended up also with the cellophane in there. There are so many dimensions, and of course, those big dumpsters, whether they're steel or they're those heavy plastic big dumpsters, they generally don't have a drain on them, so because you can't be draining organic material out the bottom. I mean, big recycling bins have a drain on the bottom so water can go through, so you end up with this mush and water in there if the bin is not kept completely sealed tightly. There's all these issues that there could be a conversation, and yet there is no conversation.
And now it becomes a health and safety hazard that the Minnesota Department of Health wouldn't be too happy with if it was being done by a private individual.
Right, and the question is there regulation? Because if the Ramsey County dumps a big bin in the parking lot of City Hall, parking lots at City Halls, generally, they're probably asphalt, and they probably all go down into the stormwater drain, which goes down into the lake. So that kind of stuff under the public safety and health statutes, under the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, would not be allowed. So there are issues, there are significant issues, and to say that Ramsey County has found a solution, or I guess if you want to be very generous, you could say Ramsey County, because they're looking at it and they're putting it, okay, there's all kinds of errors, there's all kinds of mistakes, there's all kinds of poor practices, because Ramsey County is not knowing, in my mind, to have any kind of best practices virtually wherever you look in the county. You have all these bad practices, but it makes people think that there is a vision for organic. We are doing something which has a great goal, and because we're well intended. And the issue is, when people's eyes are opened in the future, does that really work credibly for the general idea of organic recycling? And don't ask me in a million years why they're not letting private companies do that instead of having these organic, and we don't really know who they're picked up by. I guess they're picked up by private companies. The city is just giving them the bin, but is it
Yeah,
the
the
right kind
county
of?
is.
The county is, and the county, of course, where are they getting the money for to give the free bid to the city? It's all from the same property owners.
That's right.
I don't think Betty McCullum is getting any kind of grants from the federal government to give them organic bins to recycle, to deal with. So whether the city buys the big bin or the county buys the big bin,
it's a stinky business nonetheless.
right.
Well, we have our first clip is from the Maplewood City Council meeting where appointed Mayor Marley Abrams is giddy with glee over her new little green slop pail that she has to start her organic recycling.
Has moved forward with home composting, and I just picked mine up this morning. You can pick it up here at City Hall, and this is the compost bucket that you can use. And then it also comes with, I feel like this is show and tell, but it's really very cool. I'm excited to be doing this. There is a starter kit that's included, and so all you have to do is come to City Hall, or you can also, I learned from City Clerk Sint that you can also go to the Ramsey County Library and pick one of these up. If you don't want one of these buckets, but you want the compostable bags, then you can just simply pick those up out at our compost site, which is you can see it, it's in the parking lot of our Y and Community Center. You can pick up replacement bags there. I also checked with the county, and they are moving towards being able to do home pickup, but it's probably going to be several years out, because what they're trying to do is design bags, a blue bag that you would put your compostable material in and just simply close it up, put it in your garbage, and then it would be separated when your garbage picks up. But we aren't there yet, the county isn't there yet, so for now, you can all stop and get one of these, and it's free of charge, so start composting.
Now, it sounds from her description that you have a couple different options. One is you can do home composting, which it sounds as if they're encouraging people to start that compost pile in the back of their shed. Then that, of course, is somewhat in conflict with the Maplewood property maintenance standards that says that you're not supposed to have anything outside your home and your property that's going to be a nuisance that's going to attract wild animals. Because just having that little starter kit, maybe, I don't know what's contained in that, but it might be the materials that you need to get your compost starting to decompose, but that doesn't necessarily speak to how you're going to keep that compost pile from not being accessible to the wild animals that you're supposed to keep out of your backyard under the Maplewood property maintenance standards.
And you're absolutely right. It looks like a nice container. It looks like it could be something you could hold. Everybody should go pick one up, because you could maybe hold Lego blocks in there or something. The question is, first of all, I think you're going to need more than one, because, and she wasn't clear on this, you noticed it was a square container, and I'm not sure, because if it's something that she wants you to line with a bag, or if something she wants you just to dump it in there. But of course, if you're dumping your banana peels and your eggshells and all your pear and apple droppings in there, that's going to become smelly, and it's a mess. And so I think you have every day or two, every 2 days or every day, you have to put it outside. So let's say you really want to do this, you want to follow what Ramsey County is mandating, what Mary Abrams is really fired up about. If you are going to line them, you're going to have to pick up 7 bags or 6 bags, because you're not going to have in your house this container sitting there full of decomposing matter. So, okay, maybe you're only going to change the bag every other day, even though it would probably be best practices to change it every day. And then where do you put that bag? You're going to have to put that bag in some other pail or throw it out the door. If you're not going to use the bag, then you're going to put your waste in this container, and then every day when you throw it outside, because it's all fresh and decomposing, then you're going to have time to wash the pail. So it'd be better to have 4 or 5 of these pails. So don't just pick up one of these pails when you're there. If you're going to do that, pick up 6 or 7 of these pails. So, and then of course, what kind of animals love all these kinds of this produce, waste, and things like that? We know chipmunks, mice,
raccoons.
Raccoons. They would love. So I think if you're going to actually put it outside your door, or outside in your garden, you're probably going to, when you assemble enough of these pails, once a week maybe you're going to dump it out there, you can dig a hole and put it in there. Or I guess if you're out there in the wintertime, it can freeze. There are all kinds of issues, and these aren't complicated issues. These are issues that everybody has dealt with. It's not like nobody has done organic composting ever in Minnesota. Many, many, many people. And of course, the one thing they need is they need multiple pails, because if you in the wintertime you can't dig a hole, what do you need to do? You got to take it outside and put it somewhere and let it freeze. And then when the ground is thawed in the spring, then you dig your hole and dump it in there, because you just can't have a pile of produce rotting out in your backyard.
Not only that, Maplewood Code Police, with their drone buzzing over your house, is going to see that you got one of these big, huge piles of potato peels in your backyard, a nuisance for raccoons,
right.
and you'll be cited. But here's the question that I was thinking of when she was talking about her little pail. Now, I personally don't have a dog, but I have a number of friends who do have dogs, and dogs and they can't help it because this is just their nature, they like stinky things. They do. They love stinky things. They will find stinky things outside, literally find them, and will roll in the stinky thing because they like the smell of it.
Right.
Well, here's the deal about that. You've got this little compost slop pail in your house. It starts accumulating stuff. You've got a dog. You don't have a place to put it in some enclosed bin somewhere, because it'll make your whole cupboard smell. It makes your house smell. The dog smells this smelly bin, noses that cover off, which doesn't have a latch. It doesn't look to me like much of a latch. And then you've got the dog, his nose is in this, mulling around, and now you've got stinky stuff all over your kitchen because your dog got into the slop pail.
Right.
I mean, you see, but that same problem
That's right.
could happen outside as well. You put your stuff outside, what happens to it? The animals get at it, the dogs get at it. I mean, I just don't know that saying, okay, you get this little pail, and the starter kit is going to get you on the road to composting. There's more to it than that. And then, of course, you've got all the people who live in apartments. Well, they certainly don't have the place outside the apartment building where they're just going to start a big heap of potato peels. I mean, this isn't going to work. And so then you brought up, of course, there's the big roll-off per city that's in a parking lot someplace in Maplewood. It's between the community center, the YMCA community center, and the suburban courthouse. A great place to have, it located right there along White Bear Avenue, so you can, drive all, however many miles you need to get there, so you can drop off your little green bag of potato peels. That sounds really energy efficient to me, doesn't it?
Well, and this whole little pail idea does not really cut the mustard. I can see why people like to pick up most of these pails, because they look like they're good storage bins for something. Maybe they could be storage bins for your golf balls, or maybe for aluminum cans or something. I don't know. But I don't think until they actually find a process where they can pick it up at your door which they say they really have no indication when they're going to do it. All this other stuff is just fake. It's not real. It's not going to work. There are many reasons it's not going to work. So, I mean, I'm thinking, go to your city hall and pick up as many of these bins as they'll let you take, because it looks like they're going to work. And as you mentioned, you can't in your house, if you're going to have these pails, they might as well. You would think they would put a lid on there that would be more secure. That's why the old-fashioned ice cream pails works out better, because a dog can't get in there. You're going to have to, you have a lid there, but you're going to have to put it in the cupboard. You're under the kitchen sink or wherever.
Yes,
You're going to have to have
exactly.
a designated space for it to be.
And she indicated, that you can go to the public library to get your little green pail. And the thought occurred to me is maybe they've got more little green pails at the library now than they have books.
And you're right. And I did go to the library in St. Paul to try to pick one of these up. And guess what? They're out. And they said, well, the other library, they're going to try to get some from them because they have like 8 left. And I'm thinking, so come back a week or 2 weeks and maybe we'll have, it's something like 3 or 4 here. Well, I'm thinking, I don't want just one of these, I want 4 of these. So that's going to be more than, because I'm going to need 4 if I'm going to really get in this procedure of organic recycling. And I can understand why the county wants to have this conversation, but I don't think they're doing it in a practical, efficient, realistic manner. Now, if you have a grocery store, where they throw a lot of organic stuff out, or produce, or you have a restaurant that has a lot of stuff, maybe the county should be dealing with that and have a real impact on organic recycling. Big places that throw a lot of organic waste away. Because again, this organic food does not go to the pig bins to feed pigs. That's the meat and stuff like that. That's not eggshells and potato peels, I don't believe.
Right. And you bring up a good point, is that wouldn't it be a more effective use of time and resources to actually establish partnerships between the county and restaurants or other entities that have, grocery stores, another good example you gave, that have a high level of organics to dispose of, and then make those the sites for the organic drop-off, because then you would have more in there at a time, so it makes it more practical when the county is doing their pickup, because not only are they providing a service for that particular business, but then they're also collecting all of that organic, and then the residents who do end up throwing some of their stuff into that organic recycling bin at that facility, they're contributing, but you have more volume at that point.
Right, yeah, and of course, like anything, the big issue, even if you cut the county slack and say, well, there's always this never-ending issue of contamination. And if you're going to deal with this contamination issue, the only way you can deal with it is to have significant fines. And if the county wants to start fining businesses and individuals for having
well, they're going to have to
foil.
monitor. They're going to have to monitor who the offenders are. And how do you do that? Now, in my conversations with some people in the community, there are a number of churches in and around Maplewood in the St. Paul area that are getting into this organics composting idea, where they have indeed the big bins for organic composting, but that some weeks, as you indicated, somebody erroneously puts the wrong stuff in there, and then it contaminates the whole bin for the whole week. And now we have something that is not usable as organic composting anymore, and it just has to go into the regular trash. So there is this issue of compliance and of correctly collecting the organic waste.
it's a can of worms. And of course,
No pun intended.
They don't want to make, they are pretending, again, as acting as Mary Abrams, as a confidence person, that it's all under control. And of course, there is nothing under control. They do not really have a procedure, they do not actually have a process, and to pretend that they have something is all fake, because they really don't have a genuine vision.
Yeah, it's really an ad campaign. It's really just an ad campaign once you start delving into it.
Yes.
Well, now we've seen appointed Mayor Marley Abrams giddy about her little green can that she's got there. But at this same meeting, County Commissioner Vicki Reinhardt was also giving a presentation about the organics waste collection program of Ramsey County. So let's get started with that.
In environmental health, and when you were talking about the compost bin there, I was like, yay. My background is in the environmental field, and specifically in recycling and garbage and trying to do the right thing. And I often point out that when people say they're throwing away their garbage, there is no such place. It's just that simple. And it's one thing, I also say that I love it. And the reason, it kind of weird looks at that, but one of the reasons that I say that is because it's the one thing that no matter who you are, no matter where you're from or anything else, we all have control over what we put in the garbage. And if we choose to recycle a can, that makes a difference for future generations. So we have control over it, and what better thing to really educate yourself on and make sure that you're taking advantage of the opportunities.
Well, I do agree that we all have control over what we put in the trash.
We have control over a lot. She is pushing herself out, if I got that right, as an expert on garbage, on recycling. She didn't mention organic recycling.
And doing the right thing.
She's an expert on doing the right thing. My question is, if she's a professional expert on doing the right thing, how come so many of her decisions on a county are not the right thing to do? I don't, again, she's not using best practices on one thing that she's an expert on, doing the right thing. And we're not talking about recycling or garbage, because we have no idea what she does or what she believes. But on so many other things, she finds a way to manage to do the wrong thing. And
like give herself a pay raise again and again and again. But she is a professional and has her education and her esteemed background in doing the right thing.
And she says we have control over it. Well, there's many things we have control over it. Ms. Vicki Reinhardt, County Commissioner, she wouldn't need, she could take the bus to work, but instead, I believe she wants to drive her Escalade. She could take a small economy car to work. Instead, she takes the biggest, most expensive, virtually the most expensive SUV to work. Well, she has control over what kind of, but she is privileged. And of course,
and is that doing the right thing for the environment, which she has her background in?
And she's an expert, and she knows it isn't. Because she can't plead, I'm naive, I don't know what to do. But of course Vicki Reinhardt considers she doesn't have time to do the right thing, because as a privileged group, she believes that her time is more valuable than doing the right thing. Now I question...
You mean she doesn't want to sit on the bus for 45 minutes from White Bear Lake down to Ramsey County Courthouse, where the offices are for the county commissioners, that she doesn't want to ride on the bus for 45 minutes one way? That she doesn't have time for that? For the environment? For the good of the environment? Oh, really?
Well, it's a matter of priorities. Again, does she prioritize her elite privileged status more over her wanting to do the right thing? And although she's an expert on doing the right thing, she knows what the right thing is to do. She decides that it's better to do the wrong thing, because of course, for her, time is money. Now, the thing she wants to do the right thing are the people who have no money or are poor or don't have good housing, or they don't have jobs, or they have criminal offenses. Those are people who should do the right thing. As a member of the privileged group, she believes that's not my responsibility. In my mind, that she believes that's not my responsibility to do the right thing. And yet she will go on and pontificate to others. I guess she looks at them as the common people, her subjects, the proletariat.
Well, let's hear what else she has to say on this topic.
And we really want to decrease the material that's ending up in a landfill. So we have the program called Biz Recycling, and I know a number of the businesses within Maplewood have taken advantage of that, but it provides an assessment of what's going on in your business or your operation. It is done individualized, so it's not just, if it's a chain, if there's 3 of them in Maplewood, each one gets their own assessment. You can decide what you want to do or not do, but it's designed to help the environment and reduce your costs. And then we also provide some funding to bridge for education and for signage and different things, so that it will bridge until you see that benefit in your garbage bill.
Now, she mentioned that they're working on that all of this, this biz program is to keep things out of
This is Ramsey County.
out of the landfill. Now, Ramsey County doesn't have a landfill, do they? Okay.
They got a big flame with a big hot flame burner, don't they?
So I think that most of the trash haulers, from what I can tell in all the programs we've done with regard to the St. Paul trash issue, the Maplewood trash issue, other communities' trash issue, is that they all are using the Ramsey, Washington facility.
So there is zero, a big zero going into landfill.
So why is she talking about that the point is to keep it out of the landfill? They don't have a landfill, and nobody brings it to a landfill.
You decide, but I think Vicki Reinhardt is a lot of just fake bluster of false information.
I think that that's an old line she's been using since she did her dissertation and didn't realize and remember that she voted for the Ramsey, Washington facility.
Right. Facility means garbage burner.
Yes, that's right. Well, let's continue.
We have the refuse-derived fuel facility in Newport, but we're really looking to what is after combustion. We have a 75% recycling mandate from the state of Minnesota, and we need to really do more with the energy market development and planning for the future of waste to energy. And so we're looking at gasification, which is carbon neutral, the type that we are looking at anyway, and anaerobic digestion. And that brings us to organic waste and to...
Well, now she has indeed remembered that they've got their burner.
And she didn't call it a burner.
She did not.
But it's the facility in Newport where they burn it all. And her big idea is anaerobic digestion. That is their big new concept, I guess, that they're going... I mean, she's flipping all this stuff, running it all together, and you would have to take it and pull it individually apart, partly what we're doing here, to see how phony and disingenuous this is. Now again, she's an expert. She says she's an expert. She was schooled as an expert. She worked for the state of Minnesota as an expert, and this is what you come up with. Of course, she says all what we're doing when we have our biz program is we're trying our biggest, it sounds like her principal core value is to reduce cost. Because why would anybody do it? Why would any business, why would anybody do it is to reduce cost? Of course, Ramsey County has a history in this field of not reducing costs. And then she puts out that we have subsidies. We're coming in because we're showing you how to reduce costs, but because nothing we're selling, nothing we're bringing to your business, your home is going to reduce costs, we have subsidies. to do it until the day comes when the costs go down. Well, I've never seen Ramsey County in any of their programs reduce costs, and that day has never come to the best of my knowledge, for anything.
And then we also hear that Ramsey County is under mandates for how much of the waste coming out of the county must be recycled. Well, she doesn't give, though, the statistic as to how close to that mandate they are. What is the gap between the mandate and where they're at? Now, a few years ago, before Maplewood moved to doing their recycling through a contract with Tennis, and Maplewood was recycling with a different company, of all the communities in Ramsey County, Maplewood had the lowest recycling rate, 16%.
Right.
That's what Maplewood was. Then once Maplewood changed who their recycling contract was with, they went to Tennis, that number went up significantly.
And of course, back then their old recycling company was Eureka,
Yes.
which was the nonprofit government recycling company. And because there's so little transparency in any of this recycling area, I believe that many of the private companies, for example, Aspen, and other ones that pick up recycling actually ship it over to Eureka, the one that has such a poor track record to actually process the material. So it's just littered with issues of false information. And of course, one area that everybody, to the best of my knowledge, is very interested in is the transparency in recycling and in garbage and organic. Because if they take the time, because time is money, to put stuff in the right bin and to process it, they want to make sure that you're doing it correctly, that you're not ending up sending it all to the garbage trash burner in Ramsey County. And one thing you can definitely say about Vicki Reinhardt, Commissioner of Ramsey County, is she's not data-driven. As you mentioned, there's no numbers, there's no statistics, there's just hopes. Hopes will bring us to there's no analytics. There's nothing. So what that means, in my mind, is all the numbers are poor. Because I think Vicki Reinhardt has said before, she wants to have government that is data-driven. And there's no data at all. So when they skip all the data, it means that the current system is not working. It's a mess, it's dysfunctional, and it's failing.
And here is another concern that I have, if you're talking about data-driven, is that the different cities within Ramsey County have a different success rates at what their recycling rates are. And so those communities that have figured out how to either motivate their residents, or that they've got a good system, or that they somehow figured out how to crack that nut, and they've got a good percentage of recycling going on in their community, they may need a different level of engagement with Ramsey County than that community like Maplewood was a few years back, where they were 16th in line, and the worst of the 16 cities that was being looked at with regard to recycling rates. And so what we see is it appears that Ramsey County has a program, but it is a universal one-size-fits-all for all communities, all cities within Ramsey County, no matter what their statistics are. And so is that as successful as compared to if you customize your incentives and your programs from community to community based on the statistics for their success levels.
And you're absolutely right, because some communities, of course, know what to do. They have competent people. They have policies that are driven instead of just a bunch of rubber stampers like the city of Maplewood has. And so some communities can do it right. And what's unfortunate is if you have a whole department, which really doesn't cut the mustard, down at Ramsey County, all these what they would call themselves professionals, they're high paid, they're planners, they're going to impose from their Ramsey County courthouse tower down there on all these cities. And there is no indication that Ramsey County, who knows why, but that they know what they're doing and know what is the right thing to do. And if they did have the right thing to do, with that whole floor of garbage planners and all their mandates and all their regulations, wouldn't they, when they sent their talking points out, instead of the mishmash mush you get out of Vicki Reinhardt, wouldn't they present the data? Because the facts. So instead of just all this string together one-liners, which she doesn't even want to take the time to explain. If we go from the garbage burner in like in a phrase almost to anaerobic organic process, and there's no explanation of anything.
Right, and just blurting it out there that Ramsey County has a 75% mandate. But here's where she could have individualized her presentation to the populace of Maplewood, who obviously this presentation is also intended for the residents, I would think, is to say, in Maplewood, thank you for getting us there, because out of Maplewood, your recycling is X percent. And so you're getting us there. And letting Maplewood know, are they helping Ramsey County, or are we to infer that because she doesn't say anything, that we are actually the community that's dragging Ramsey County down? Don't you think that we should know that one way or the other? Are we the one that's propping up everybody else in the recycling business and looking at these statistics? Or are we the ones dragging them down? Maybe that's part of the educational piece that they need to identify for each community in Ramsey County so that people have an understanding of what they're doing.
Again, absolutely. Great-grandma Vicki Reinhardt there, with a big public state of Minnesota pension, with her husband, a big public state of pension, with her approximately $100,000 for meeting a couple hours weeks with Ramsey County. It would seem like she has all the time in the world to give a individual presentation, and yet it seems like she hardly knows what she's reading, if she's just reading talking points, or that she's just so out of time, she's juggling so many things that she can't actually take the time when she comes to the city to have a genuine, real conversation. She's an expert on this subject. This should be no problem. Does an expert who did her whole career, who earned a big public pension out of the state of Minnesota on these issues, does she truly really need to read the talking points that are all just mishmashed together by you don't know whom?
I noticed that, of course, she complimented appointed Mayor Marley Abrams for bringing up the green little slop pail that everybody should go pick up, and that congratulated the mayor on having her own. But she didn't identify and say, well, I have mine at home too.
Right.
So does she have her own little green slop pail at home that she's carting out her potato peels and apple peels? Is she doing this? That would be a good question, because you mentioned how she's not riding the bus from White Bear Lake, where she lives, down to the Ramsey County Courthouse where she offices. She's not taking that bus ride every day, that she's taking her
I don't think ever, but
her motorized vehicle that is warm and comfy and
right, heated seats,
and
and
everything.
can take all the big bumps, all the big potholes, and all these Ramsey County roads.
So you see, so that would be a question. Does she have her own green, orange slop pail?
And whether she has it or not, and neither of these ladies address that issue, they have it. Even if they have it, do they use it? It looked like from when Mary Abrams, the mayor of Maple, was pulling out, she hadn't even cut open the instructions. It certainly didn't look like it was being used. If she wanted to do an efficient campaign, don't you think she would have at least tried to do it once, dump the pail out and say, see, I used it too. Do you think Mary Abrams is using that? Do you think Vicki Reinhardt are using slop pails? Believe me, if they were, we would have heard about it.
Well, let's take a look at our next clip.
So one of the things that we are doing at the Ramsey Washington Recycling and Energy Center is looking at durable compostable plastic bags for organics. And as you pointed out, Mayor Abrams, it's an optical sort that comes in. And that is, in fact, we are going to the state legislature asking for funds for an optical sort at the facility that will pull out the recyclables and will pull out the durable organic compostable bags.
This is going right exactly to that mandate. At their own facilities, they're not able to pull out the recyclables because doing it by hand is not efficient or effective. And so they're not doing the recycling properly at their own facilities. So they have to go to the legislature to have the legislature give them money to buy an optical sorter to automatically do it so that optical eye can see and detect the recyclables or little bags of organic waste over the other junk that's been thrown out. So now we're finding out where there's some other gaping holes in their process.
I think it's very exciting. It does cost money, but the fact of the matter is hand sorting really doesn't work. And especially when it comes to organic bags, I remember going to a facility once where they had the blue bag, and that was for compostables, but they had to hand pull them out. Well, the Genie bags, diaper bags, were the same color. And so they had a little bit of a problem with that. The fact is, optical sorting for the compostables, it will know the difference between bags, it'll know the difference between the colors, and it will also be safer and more environmentally friendly and pulling out those recyclables and really getting the value out of what used to be waste, because there is value in it for energy, recyclables.
So maybe it's not really the cities in Ramsey County that are holding Ramsey County back from meeting their mandates of 75% recycling. Maybe it's Ramsey County and their facility that's holding Ramsey County back from meeting that mandate. And you see, nobody is asking this question.
I wish she would cut it out. It does sound like Ramsey County has big problems. She's been a county commissioner doing the public policy for all these years. She's an expert on this. You can see she left her talking points there, and there she was speaking freely. And what she was saying is, well, what I took from what she was saying, of course, I don't know, she was saying that, well, we're going to have blue bags and we're going to have a color optical sort, so they're going to pull the bags out because they're blue. But we can't have humans do it because, wow, the blue bags were something that were disposable diapers were in, and of course the color optical sort is going to be able to sort out the color of those blue bags versus the other blue bags. Now, of course, you would think there would be a question, well, don't you think a human being could identify immediately what a diaper bag is over any kind of artificial intelligent color optical sort machine?
But keep in mind, sorting through trash is a poopy job.
Well, and unfortunately, the job market in Ramsey County for a lot of people is very poor and getting worse. And at least for many people, I think they could set up the procedure to make it a more of a clean job if they would worry about those processes. And I can see that Ramsey County seems like they're really spending a lot of energy, at least the way she's representing, a lot of energy. We're going to have optical sort and we're going to try to clean up this failure mess. But of course, it's going to cost more money, which of course is going to be, whenever the county is going to have more money, what does that mean? Where do they get their money for? More fees and more property taxes. Ramsey County does not have any kind of track record of having efficiency and best practices.
Well, and at the Ramsey County level, their tipping fees to the trash haulers for this next year, I believe, has gone up like a total of $20 million.
Wow.
Which is passed along to all the customers who have, their trash picked up.
And I wonder if she's excited about that. She seems like I'm really excited about this. What I would like to hear the explanation is the description of what's going on there and why she's so excited about this big fee and property and these tax increases for their higher costs. Where isn't there any explanation? Why isn't there this big vision? Well, we had to really jack up all these fees and we had to do all this, but the day is going to come in the future where all costs are going to be reduced.
So you see, this is not just a Maplewood issue. This is an issue that impacts everybody who lives in Ramsey County.
And in my mind, it's an issue of leadership.
Yes.
A leadership right at the county level, a leadership right of what's going on with county administrators, a leadership issue, a big leadership issue with what's going on with the Public Policy Board. And what's just totally puzzling is why should this be a leadership issue when she is an expert at doing the right thing?
Well, we will keep you informed as this topic continues to decay.
But I'm sure we're going to find a lot of maggots around it if we look closely. Those maggots, you don't have to have a microscope to see them. And I think if you probably go into their bins, now in the wintertime there probably won't be many maggots.
That's right, of course.
But wait till because the flies aren't around. Because, of course, when the flies go buzzing around those containers, what do you get? Some maggots under the sink.
Every time the lid is open, a fly flies in.
They're slick and they're sneaky.
That's
and
right.
They can really swirl around quick.
Well, I'm sure that this will continue. Yes. Now, in the last few minutes of our news program, we do want to announce that in Maplewood, if you're accustomed to taking the detour around Frost Avenue because, it's been closed for, 6 months or more for a small 1 mile or less reconstruction. It is now open. Frost Avenue is now open and you can drive from the intersection of Frost and English all the way to White Bear Avenue. And I do believe that's a mile or less. I don't think it's much more than a mile, that distance. But it did indeed take them 6 months, or perhaps more, to get that stretch of road done. But it is finished.
But you should also mention that it's finished in the sense that it looks like the asphalt is laid, but the lines haven't been paved.
That's right.
And so it's still, in my mind, it's a bigger safety hazard. And I thought at least one of the big mandates of cities and the government in general was public safety. But why would they open up a road before, narrow it way down and not paint lines?
And this is
what's the problem?
And this is a good point to bring out to our viewers, especially for those who do drive on Frost Avenue. If it's nighttime, beware of this because you'll find yourself wanting to use that curb. But beware that curb is not a straight line down Frost Avenue. What it does is that it bows in towards the sidewalk for some areas so that cars, a few cars, 2, 3 can park. Then it comes out again, then it goes for a straight while, and then this bows in again. So you have to be careful that if you're looking at that part of it where it's bowed in, the allow for parking to be there, that if you're not paying attention, you could actually then hit the curb when it pulls back out and go straight. Again.
And I'm not quite sure how they were allowed to open that street. I guess they're the city manager's the decider without addressing a very basic public safety issue. Why not just take a couple hours and paint the lines on the asphalt? Why, like it took 6 months to do this little road construction, why does it take more than why don't they just send some people out there with a can of paint if there's not a line painting truck available and put some lines down? Just for, above everything else, a quick temporary public safety fix.
That's right. Well, we've got a clip from the HETC Commission where they're talking about all their various efforts that they took to work with the businesses along Frost Avenue during the closure of the avenue.
So I know specifically one project that's come up is the Frost Avenue construction. The current project has been going on through the duration of the summer, and on the west end, there are businesses on that road, but particularly on the west end, where Borchert's and the bakery and some other tenants are kind of right near the English intersection. That project, actually, the entire phasing that the city ended up doing on it, so that is a city construction project. The phasing on that project was all dictated or not primarily dictated by the feedback we heard from the businesses. So the typical approach would be to, that project went from White Bear all the way to English, would be to tear up the street all at once, kind of build it all at once to kind of be most efficient. But we knew that the length of that would have tremendous impacts on the access of those businesses. So although the road was under construction, the west portion of it that was most right in front of those businesses was actually postponed to the very end. So as soon as the project was wrapped up, so that they could tighten that construction area the best they could to limit the amount of time that those businesses didn't have direct access on the public.
And yet they had signs out in front of those businesses on Frost Avenue that said, road under construction. So they may not have had the road dug up, but they had the signs and the barricades there. And so sure, it looks like you could go around them. However, many people just keep going around the roundabout and avoid trying to figure out how to get around the barricades once you're trying to figure out how to get out of the roundabout to go down Frost Avenue, which was barricaded off.
And excuse me, but I think this guy is just foams at the mouth with disinformation, inaccurate information, because let's see, they opened it this week. Is this the duration of the summer? Did summer, what was it, 8 degrees? Is this summer right now in Minnesota? Duration of Minnesota plus. And how can you have access to those businesses directly right directly in the front of the businesses, closed for 3 months, and say that we did not all, but we did as much as we could to really tighten this project up so it would be done, which he inferred, quickly for the business's sake.
Even though they may have started on the White Bear Avenue end first, you couldn't access those businesses off of White Bear Avenue, which is where many, many people come from to get to those businesses.
And you're absolutely right, because that is the route in. White Bear Avenue is the main route in from St. Paul and other areas that would use it, North St. Paul.
Mr. Bergman, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
And viewers, thank you for tuning in. We'll see you again next week. Bye-bye.